Thank you for coming tonight. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Megan, second Mike. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. Okay, Mr. Poole.
Thank you, Ms. President. Welcome, everybody. I think I'm going to start off our superintendent's report tonight with a couple of special performances from a couple of our fantastic theater productions over the last month. And I would invite Mr. Crichton up to the podium to introduce our two student performers this evening.
Well, thank you very much, but my dad told me a long time ago to always bow to my bosses. So I would like to introduce the middle school principal and the high school principal to do this.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Creighton. Good evening. Thank you, Board of Education, for the opportunity to introduce these students tonight who've just been incredible in their talents and their work ethic. So a few weeks ago, many of you were fortunate, I believe, to see the production at the middle school, Fame Junior, which really earned rave reviews. It was a wonderful show. So many students were able to participate. It was really nice to have the students out there back in front of everyone being able to perform. So we're very fortunate and very lucky tonight to have one of the leads from that. This young man played Nick Piazza in the show, and he just excels at everything he does, and he's just a wonderful young man and a great talent. I'd like to invite up Anthony Mango.
What if, from the moment of the appearance of this if, the actor passes from a plane of actual reality into a plane of another life, created and imagined by himself? Believing in this life, the actor can begin to create. I wanna make magic. I want to breathe fire on the stage. I want to make every single line jump right off the page. I wanna make magic. I want to electrify the place. I want to be more than just a fool with makeup on his face. I wanna make magic, magic, magic.
That was beautiful. Thank you. Now we have Mr. Puglisi, who's going to introduce our high school student.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here tonight. I want to echo what Mr. Van just said about the energy that was back in this auditorium just a few nights ago. 3 amazing nights, 3 amazing performances, and a ton of kids who worked incredibly hard to put on those performances. We can't say enough about them. We can't say enough about all of the adults that were in the room as well to serve as their guides and their inspirations in a lot of ways as well. So tonight it's my pleasure to bring up Maddie McQuaid, who will be singing Far From the Home I Love from Fiddler on the Roof.
With the pit band still here, we have some logistical constraints. The pit band was fabulous, by the way. If any of you were here throughout Fiddler on the Roof, you know just how amazing the musicians were, in addition to our actors and actresses and the stage crew. And we're so thankful that we could have Maddie here tonight. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you.
How can I hope to make you understand why I do what I do? Why I must travel to a distant land, far from the home I love. Once I was happily content to be as I was, where I was, close to the people who are close to me, here in the home I love. Who could see that a man would come who would change the shape of my dreams? Helpless now I stand with him, watching older dreams grow dim. Oh, what a melancholy choice this is, wanting home, wanting him, closing my heart to every hope but his, leaving the home I love. There where my heart had settled long ago, I must go, I must go. Who could imagine I'd be wandering so far from the home I love? Yet there with my love, I'm home.
Anthony, Maddie, thank you so much for coming tonight and gracing us with your performances. Okay, we have the rest of the superintendent's report. Mr.
Great,
Cole.
that's really hard to follow. But how fitting on a night where we are recognizing some of the accomplishments of our wonderful musicians here in the school district, to have such lovely performances by two very, very talented students. Also very fitting, we were advised today from the National Association of Music Merchants that for the third consecutive year, we have been recognized as one of the best communities for music education. That's a national award to the school district, and that is an award for our families, students, and educators, so congratulations to everyone. So I also want to say congratulations to the entire cast and crew of Fiddle on the Roof for really 3 amazing theatrical performances, and I would be remiss if I again didn't give a congratulations to the crew of the show, including the digital media production crew back there, which some of the students that were there for the play are there this evening. So great job. I know those students manning the booth, manning the production booth, designed the lighting for the shows, managed the sound, and take care of, it's so seamless when they do it. It's just amazing work by them as well. I know later on this evening, we're going to be recognizing the contributions of some of our students in the Media Production Club with their winning entry for the Town of Brookhaven's Bicycle Safety Video Challenge. So congratulations to them. We'll recognize them in a moment. A few happenings across the school district. Over at Prodell, they are celebrating National School Library Month in conjunction with Wildcats with Character. And in the library, they have been running activities such as a chess tournament, a stick-together mosaic, shelfies, guess the book, and makerspace fun. Also over at the middle school, we've been highlighting some of the changes to the home and career program over the course of this school year. And recently in Ms. Berg's class, students have been working on developing strong active listening skills as part of their communication and conflict resolution unit. So they're using these skills to interview a peer and an adult in our community, capturing those interviews on video, and then reflecting on the process afterwards. And students have noted in current society it's become easier to communicate through text, which often leads to misunderstandings. So this experience of eye-to-eye interviewing and active listening has been engaging and interesting for those students. So some great work happening over in the home and career classes at Prodell. Over at Wading River, Bob White quail eggs were delivered this week to fifth graders as part of a special science project. So students were raising and releasing those quails and learning about their life cycles and how they help control the tick population in an ecologically friendly manner. This is a partnership with the Center for Environmental Education and Discovery and a local charity, Hearts and Hands. So we have about 3 weeks till we'll have baby quail chicks. So it's very, very exciting. Recently, the fourth graders went to Benner's Farm to learn about colonial history. Third graders in Mrs. Will's class had a virtual poetry pop-up visit yesterday from a youth poet laureate, Elizabeth Schwartz and Jessica Kim, as part of their poetry unit. Over at Miller Avenue, students recently visited the Long Island Museum in Stony Brook, having traditional clothing on and attending a one-room schoolhouse, and completed chores such as churning butter and turning hay. Miller Avenue students also had a Bash the Trash assembly where a group performed and educated students through music by making musical instruments from reused and repurposed materials. Some congratulations and shout outs to some of our athletic teams. The wrestling team earned a number of awards at the Suffolk County Wrestling Coaches Association All-County Dinner last week. The team was honored for winning Suffolk County Wrestling Championship in 2022 and for earning back-to-back Suffolk County championships. 8 Wildcat wrestlers earned all-county honors: Chris Colon, Anthony Giordano, Craig Jablonski, Will Miller, Tyler Paris, Tristan Petretti, Joe Stymel, and Zach Wilson. Joe Stymel was also named the Division II Suffolk County Wrestling Champion. Craig Jablonski and Tristan Petretti were honored as all-state student athletes, and Craig Jablonski was also honored with the Betsy Turk Memorial Academic Scholarship. Congratulations to Coach Joe Condon, who took home both the Suffolk County Varsity Coach of the Year and the League 7 Varsity Coach of the Year. Suffolk County and League 7 Assistant Coaches of the Year went to Corey Dolson, Chris Maloney, Kevin Nohill, and Steve Tadeo. And wow, what a great season, what a great group of students and coaches. So congratulations to all of them. Also want to recognize Liam Bowes and Billy Steele, who were recognized by Newsday as making the list of top 100 players, baseball players on the island. Aaron Cahill made Newsday's top 100 for softball. Congratulations to those two students. And then tonight, upcoming presentations for this evening. Ms. Von Eschen is here. We'll provide an update on our social emotional learning and mental health priorities in the school district. They continue to be really important and a priority to all of us, so she'll be providing an update this evening. Mr. Arcuri will be presenting on the budget. With the recent final New York State adopted budget, we have some final revenue numbers. And also on tonight's agenda, we will be awarding the UPK contract to St. Anselm's for the 32 seats that we were awarded last year through state aid funding. We did receive additional UPK funding. We'll have to work through and probably issue another RFP. But just to note that the lottery, after this evening, the lottery for the upcoming UPK program for 32 seats will be held on May 3rd, and all residents should expect a postcard from the school district with more information on that in the upcoming weeks. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole. Any opportunity for board members? Okay, we'll go right into student staff recognitions. Mr. Puglisi introducing the Suffolk County Bicycle Safety Video Contest winners.
Again, thank you very much. Earlier today, 4 of our students and a couple of our staff members had a great experience over at the Suffolk County Legislature, where legislature anchor presented them with accommodations for the winning bicycle safety video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up Mr. Vincent Ball and Mr. Brendan Gilly, two of our teachers within our English department, who are also the co-advisors of the Media Club, to talk about the video, to talk about the experience, and to introduce the students. Thank you.
Big thank you to Mr. Poole and the Board of Ed for having us tonight. It's much appreciated. This celebration in honor of the Media Production Club and the students who worked so hard on the bicycle safety video would not be possible without Ms. Nicole Wallbauer, who sort of came up with the idea for this club and helped us get it off the ground. A big thank you to Mr. Pugliese, who brought the competition to our attention in the first place as well. Really, all of the credit for this goes to the students, James Wicks, Nicholas Friedlander, Chris Vignola, and Jack DeAndrea. They displayed a real high level of initiative in tackling this project head on. Their desire to collaborate was organic, refreshing to see, and I think it's a testament to their creativity that the video was such a success and eventually deserving of the recognition that it did receive. I really couldn't be any prouder, and thank you again.
Okay. Hi, everybody. To echo Mr. Ball's sentiment, I would like to thank everyone for their role in making the Media Production Club a welcoming place for students to freely collaborate and challenge themselves. The administration at SWR provided us with the tools and resources to make this possible, and the students are absolutely ecstatic that they've won, and I know that everyone here shares that excitement, and we appreciate all the support, and we hope to use this example of success as motivation for future Media Club endeavors. Thank you.
Are the four students here? Yes. They are. Could you call them up and have them up for a picture?
For sure, yes.
Great, that would be great.
Come on down, gentlemen.
Come on up.
Yeah, come up to the stage. Right over here. Mr. Meinster.
Okay, Mr. Meinster, we're going to have you introduce the LIFSFA, SCMEA, and the New York State students who won the KME awards.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
CME, sorry.
And the entire Board of Education, community members, I am very honored and pleased to be able to introduce our distinguished music staff who are here tonight to help introduce and recognize students from our Long Island Festival, String Association Festival, SCMEA, and NISCAME. These are students that were selected for these select ensembles, and we're going to recognize them here tonight. I'm going to get the spotlight over to those that deserve it the most, and those are the teachers that help prepare our students for these honors and recognitions, who will share the names of those students with us tonight. And with us this evening, we have Fred Voles, we have James Finnerty, and we have Dennis Creighton, who will be reading off the names and recognizing our students. Once all of the students have been recognized, we're going to invite everybody to come outside into the lobby where we can do a photo for everybody.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Before we begin this, I think it is very important to point out how closely connected this community is around its music. That's why we've won best communities for music education the last several years, because we see hundreds of people at our concerts, and our students, the number of students that you're going to hear have their name read tonight is incredibly out of the average for a school of our size, in the positive direction. Schools 2 or 3 times our size would be proud to have the numbers that we have. So with that as a place to start, I'd like to introduce Mr. Finnerty and Mr. Voles, who will explain a little bit about what SCMEA and LISFA are. And then we'll start.
Good evening, everybody. First, I'm just going to start with explaining what SCMEA is. SCMEA is the coming together of the best musicians in Suffolk County that all come together for a weekend concert after only just a few rehearsals, and they represent their respective grade levels on their specific instrument or vocal parts. I kind of like to describe it as like the all-star team of music, essentially. And as for LISFA, Mr. Voles?
LISFA works in a very similar manner. It's more specific to string students because it's the Long Island String Festival, but students are selected based on teacher recommendation and NISMA scores. This year was a little bit different. Usually they have a in-person performance and rehearsals with a guest conductor. They chose to go the virtual route, so the students got to participate in pop workshop, a fiddling workshop, a jazz and improvisation workshop, and for the high school students, they got to participate in virtual master classes. So I'd like to start with the Wading River students. When you do hear your name, if you are here in the room, we do ask you to stand. And per building, we'll give you a round of applause. So Wading River, once we're done with Wading River, we'll have your own applause. So please excuse the pronunciation. Some of these students I've not had the pleasure of seeing yet. So please be nice to me. Wading River Elementary. Okay, so for SCMEA and LISFA, it's Natasha Asmoon. For LISFA, Eve Calvert. SCMEA, Alexis Cordano. SCMEA, Laurel Coster. SCMEA, Hazel Kresser. SCMEA, Sophia Hasid. SCMEA, Nina Hatou. SCMEA and LISFA, Linda Hu. SCMEA and LISFA, Zachary Lister. SCMEA and LISFA, Brenna Molinelli. SCMEA, Gavin Molinelli. And LISFA, Bryn Shinnick. Can we please give them a round of applause? We're going to split the load a little bit. For middle school, I'm just going to do the 6th grade and then pass it off to Mr. Finnerty. So in the 6th grade for middle school, SCMEA and LISFA, Joseph Calandrillo. SCMEA and LISFA, Avery DeBano. SCMEA, Chelsea DeCalabas. SCMEA, Grace Gallagher. SCMEA and LISFA, Lauren Galucci. SCMEA, Lila Granshaw. SCMEA and LISFA, Kai Hidaka. SCMEA, Mairead Jaffe. SCMEA and LISFA, Christopher Joseph. SCMEA, Jack Laeta. SCMEA, William Lister. SCMEA and LISFA, Kevin Lascalzo. SCMEA and LISFA, Emily Minetti. SCMEA and LISFA, Valentina Pinos. SCMEA and LISFA, Clara Peterson. LISFA, Emma Petretsky. SCMEA, Isabel Roth. LISFA, Israel Salgado. SCMEA, Gabriella Smith. SCMEA, Adelina Villa. SCMEA and LISFA, Aidan Wang. And SCMEA, Justin Wood.
First, 7th, and 8th grade, SCMEA and LISFA, Maxwell Bowram. LISFA, Alexandra Calandrillo. LISFA, Louis Cernelia. SCMEA and LISFA, Michael Ciaschini. SCMEA, Natalie Cortina. SCMEA, Jake Donnelly. SCMEA, Gabriella Gallagher. In SCMEA, Lila Grasso. In LISFA, Emily Hermans. In SCMEA, Ava Hernandez. In SCMEA and LISFA, Ray Hidaka. in Lisfa, Emily Call, in Lisfa, Ryan Koneski, in Scamia, Riley Keneally, in Scamia and Lisfa, Spencer Lee, in Scamia, Leighton Mangiamele, in Scamia, Anthony Mango, in Scamia, Olivia Pesso, in Scamia, Charles Tacky, in Scamia, Forrest Tepfanart, in Lisfa, Alexander Tuschenko, in Scamia, Aiden Schmidt, in Scamia, Nathan Schaefer, in Lisfa, Mia Stallone, in Lisfa, Terrence Winters, and in Scamia, Timothy Worthington. Can all the middle school students please stand so we can give you a round of applause?
At the high school level, we have that third acronym to throw at you, NISCAME, New York State Council of Administrators of Music Education. That is an ensemble that is for our 11th and 12th graders. That ensemble is considerably smaller and there's less of them than there are in Scamia. So that one gets a little bit more select. So in NISCAME and LISFA, Natalie Acker. In NISCAME, Teresa Adams. In NISCAME, Daniel Colon. NISCAME, Liam Flatley. Scamia, Emma Granshaw. Scamia, Abigail Haverty. LISFA, Yi Yahoo. Scamia and LISFA, Chloe Jager. Scamia, James Maxwell. Scamia, Liam McQuaid. Scamia, Salvatore Mealy. LISFA, Karen McGuire. NISCAME, Melissa Liguri. NISCAME, Mia Lombardi. NISCAME, Gina McGivney. NISCAME, Madison McQuaid. Scamia and LISFA, James Minetti. Scamia and LISFA, Alicia Minty. NISCAME and LISFA, Anya Minty. LISFA, Jocelyn Nastasi. Scamia and LISFA, Killian O'Reilly. NISCAME, Ryan O'Shaughnessy. NISCAME, Carolyn Panassi. Sorry, that was Scamia, Carolyn Panassi. Next year, maybe, in NISCAME. Scamia and LISFA, Lucas Portuguese. NISCAME, Emily Ruda. Scamia and LISFA, Caitlin Schaefer. Scamia, Kyle Schiff. LISFA, Cameron Sheedy. Scamia, Bobby Tacky. NISCAME, Stephanie Tortora. Scamia, Aaron Vetter. NISCAME, James Wicks. Scamia and LISFA, Don K. Zhang. If all our high school students would please stand.
Could all of the students here tonight, we recognize the music stand as well? Could we have all the students stand?
Yeah, everyone, please. If you were recognized tonight, please
Students
stand.
here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Crane.
No, thank you. If we would like to get all of the students in the hall for some photos, if that would be possible.
We will, but before we go
Sure.
outside and take a picture in the hallway and give our students a pin of excellence, I know we have the president of Wildcats Helping Art and Music, our partners in music education in the school district, Ms. Colette Garasso. Thank you for your leadership. I'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I want to say it is an honor to be here as the president of the Wildcats Helping the Arts and Music, to have the opportunity to publicly commend these musicians and singers for their all-county selection to the Scamia Festival concerts. Bravo to all of you students for your high level of dedication and effort that you put into your music. This is a wonderful achievement for all of you, and we are honored for you to have this moment with all of us. And also, bravo to our outstanding music faculty who cultivate our students' talents to grow and to encourage to challenge themselves by participating in the NYSSMA Festival. As the teachers mentioned before, to be selected as an all-county musician is not an easy task, because not only do you have to subject yourself to having your musicianship judged by a professional in the NYSSMA Festival, you must perform a higher level piece as well as achieve a high score. Students who meet this stringent criteria must also receive a recommendation from their music teacher to be considered for all county. And even then, not all the students that are recommended are selected. So it truly is a fantastic testimony to the high level of our music education program and the caliber of our music students that we had over 60 students selected as all county musicians representing all 3 schools that offer band, orchestra, and chorus. I am incredibly grateful to Mr. Poole and to you, the Board of Education, for acknowledging these students publicly for this honor. A tremendous part of our mission at WHAM is to shine a brighter spotlight on the achievement of our fine and performing arts students. We are truly proud and incredibly grateful for your invitation this evening to celebrate the students and our music faculty in this forum. Congratulations once again to all of our all-county musicians and to our outstanding music faculty. Thank you so much.
Are we going to go all out at once? Okay. Well, everybody, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules to come this evening. We're going to take photos in the lobby, maybe a little bit outside too. We'll follow the photographer that we have here, and have a good evening. Congratulations.
Organized by school.
Nick would never let that happen.
Well, he wasn't down in his assigned chair. Yeah, I'm used to it. No, he was three
You're
seats over
welcome.
there. He was eating a roast.
Oh my goodness. Cleared the room. What's going on, Mick? Nothing? Oh, nice. Wow. Yeah, really. Kings Park, dude, that's closer to, Nassau County. Did you, get traffic getting back here? No. No, that's good. Nice. She's awesome. I just entered her into the Gerber baby photo contest. I was pushed into it, but I'll show you. She's rolling around now. I was a Gerber baby. My face definitely.
She wants to already tell Sawyer that she's not as good as mom. That's all she's trying to do.
She's a Gerber baby.
My daughter was such a Gerber baby, and she looked sideways. Her cheeks were so big you couldn't see her.
Yeah, that's it. Like you see past her nose, you see the other cheek. Oh, there's a good cheek picture.
Did Workman's Comp get back to you?
Which presentation should we be starting with first?
Secondary AIS, and then the repair reserve fund, and then the budget. I'm sorry? Oh, that's what I meant, SEL. I said secondary AIS, thank you. My brain's like mush. here where I am. See how the light hits, but or where you are.
Can't hear a word you're saying. Could you speak louder? What? Ooh. Ooh. Excuse me, the multimedia room. That's that guy over there. You see him? He's right there.
Usually too, just so you
Of
know.
course, he
I'm the
just
one who
passes
has
the
to
buck.
bring
What else?
Send all the emails and ordering the Sammys.
What
It's
else?
usually Roseanne who wants the Sammys. She's like, what are we doing for breakfast?
That's where you belong, young man. It's a higher title? That explains it. Yeah. See you later. Have fun.
you got it. You have to. No, it's true. he might. You'll kill him.
Okay. I think I hear crickets. Anybody else hear crickets? I'd like to introduce Mr. Meinster. We have a curriculum update for this evening.
Thank you again, and thank you. I have the privilege this evening of introducing Ms. Von Eschen, who is going to provide an update on all of the work that has been taking place this year in support of the social and emotional programs that we have really been spending a lot of time and energy focusing on as we come out of the pandemic and we're looking to get our programs and everything back up to normal. Focusing on students' well-being and mental health has been a real focus of the district, and leading that effort to a very large extent is Ms. Von Eschen, and it is my privilege and pleasure to introduce her to share the work that's been going on across the district.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here tonight to talk about this. We have been doing a lot of work with social emotional learning, and I credit most of that to really the principals, the social workers, psychologists, our guidance counselors. All the teachers have really been integral in really getting this, to a new level each and every month. So we'll go through some of the programs we have running and updates. Let's see if I can make that go. All right, so this fall, twice a year, the Mental Health Committee meets. So at the first meeting, we take a look at our brochure. So you could scan this and you could get our brochure, or it's on our website under the Mental Health and Wellness tab. But what we do here, I didn't want to repeat it all for you because you have access to it, but that's our everything all together by building, what programs we have going on. And so what we do at the beginning of the year is we take a look at this brochure and say, what are we still doing? Are there things we removed? Are there things that we added? And we update this and post it back to the web page. So this has been the second year that I had the opportunity to do this with the committee, and it's growing already. I'm already seeing the changes. So you certainly have access to our program on the website. So new this year, it's been so much fun, is our Wildcats with Character, and it's kind of our umbrella to everything social emotional learning and mental health, and just really putting that positive spin on all things character education. So we've aligned this. The first thing that we did was took our, we first decided which 10 themes we wanted to follow as a committee. We then placed those themes by month into what was meaningful. So for example, this month is Acceptance Month, which makes a lot of sense because of autism acceptance. So we made decisions like that along the way. And then we looked at our Empowering Minds curriculum, and we matched up the lessons to the character traits so that it all makes sense. And kids are hearing the same thing this entire month. They're hearing acceptance, and what does that mean? What is self-acceptance? What does it mean to accept others? So you've probably seen up through now, we've gone through acceptance. The next 2 months are resilience, and then we move on to collaboration to close out the year. Our goal right now is to continue those same 10 months for next year because we're just getting the ball rolling, and then having the kids hear those same themes a second year in a row we thought would be the best way to go about it. So we're having a lot of fun with Wildcats with Character. The presentations or slideshows that are published each month are the work of the teachers, of the staff, of the clubs, of the teams, and that's where you really see that it's growing, is when it's just a different people each month are providing us with what they're doing, around the theme of the month. So it's exciting. Empowering Minds just spoke a little bit about this. So certainly kindergarten through 8th grade, that curriculum aligns with our Wildcats with Character, and lessons are being done. There's 2 lessons per month at the elementary level. And this year, the kids are able to see those lessons presented by different people, which shows them that SEL is important to everyone. So it's not only just the psychologist or just the classroom teacher or just the physical education teachers. We met on this several times during the year and realized that it's probably important for kids to see that these are all the people in their world that find it important. So next year we're going to expand on that again as we work through who's presenting which lessons during which months. So right now it's with our classroom teachers, and there was a great deal of training that went on for them to be prepared to present those lessons in their classroom. New this year, and it's been a really great resource for us, is our high school mentor program. So we have 5 staff members that are connected with over 20 identified students to serve as their mentors. The mentors have scheduled weekly times to meet with their mentee students. And like I said, there's 20 students that are actively meeting. Students were identified for this program over the summer or very early September by the administration, the teachers, the counselors, and based on several factors. Some of those factors including attendance, behavior, grades, just any student that we felt we needed to just engage them a little bit more in their high school experience so that they could continue to grow socially and emotionally. And we're certainly collecting some data to really analyze at the end of the year, but even along the way, we are seeing these students connected far more than they ever had been. We have students that were never on a sports team that through the support of their mentor, they've now joined teams, and their attendance is definitely better, and it's not perfect. Some of our students still need that support, and that's okay. We're continuing on with it. We've had some students that joined the mentor program a little later in the year, so it's nice. We have a couple of open spots if we identify somebody new to join the program. So this has been a great program we're really proud of. We continue to have a relationship and a partnership, I should say, with North Shore Youth Council. North Shore Youth Council, at the beginning of last year, was in our middle school and high school, and they do after-hours counseling at those 2 buildings. We then determined a need for some extra counseling in our elementary schools as well. So late last year, they started in our elementary schools, and that continued this year. So currently, the counselor through North Shore Youth Council is doing hands-on counseling with our students, and then also it has an integral part of our high school mentor program. So there's an overlap between those 2 programs, the North Shore Youth Council counseling as well as the high school mentor program. So we've had a really great relationship with them. They've been great partners, especially in that brand new high school mentor program. One of the most utilized positions that I've seen, come to fruition and then really take off is the addition of the psychologist. So we hired a psychologist. Her position actually started in October, and she's really been integral in supporting the behavioral needs of our students. So the first portion of Ms. Curitin's role is really managing the FBAs and the BIPs and training staff on the behavior plans that are in our classrooms. So she's going in and monitoring that those behavior plans are in place, and then really determining what training needs to be done, going in and modeling, this is how you would deal with this behavior, or analyzing the data that's collected. So really all aspects of behavior consultation. She also works with students who might not have formal behavior intervention plans, but they just need like a little something, maybe a behavior contract, or a liaison to a parent when a student is having some behavioral difficulties, or a liaison to a teacher, or in addition to either a formal CSE meeting or in addition to a less formal team meeting at the building. So this role, I think everyone that has worked with Ms. Curitin, everyone would agree that this role was really needed and has been a huge help for our students in supporting students that experience behavioral difficulties. We've seen some really great turnaround with a few of our students that is, just amazing to think where we were in September and where they are now. So we're really excited about this addition. So crisis prevention and intervention, when we started crisis prevention and intervention, it was kind of in the middle of COVID, and it was hard to do that in-person training. We were doing kind of small groups. we now have 100 staff members that are either completely trained and certified or in the process of continuing their training. So maybe they've done only their online portion. I think there's maybe about like 15 people that have only done the online portion and need to complete the training. So what CPI is, it's crisis prevention and intervention, and it's the key role of it is that prevention piece. So it's using a common language and a common understanding that when a child is experiencing a behavioral difficulty, they're communicating to you. They're communicating to you that they're dealing with anxiety, and it's learning how to analyze that in the moment and then be able to react in a way that's going to help that child de-escalate rather than escalate. Physical interventions is part of it, but that's always like a last, that's like a last-ditch effort. That's not what we're looking to do. We're looking to verbally de-escalate, and it provides a risk assessment framework. So if there's 5 of us in a room watching a behavior, we're all looking at that behavior from the same risk assessment, like how risky is what's going on, how dangerous is it, or how are we going to attack it. So that training has been ongoing, and we're really pleased to say that since September, we've almost 100 people that are fully trained. So that's been great. Go Guardian Beacon, this is our newest program and our newest initiative in terms of SEL. So Go Guardian is a part of our program that monitors what students are doing on their district-issued devices or their Chromebooks. So the system, it's artificial intelligence, it's detecting searches or views of online content related to either suicide, self-harm, or violence. So that comes to us in the form of either an email or a text message to our phones. And we've been working since November on protocols to make this user-friendly. Like, what do we do if it's after hours? What do we do during the school day? Who's involved in this process? We've met many, many times to talk about this. So where we're at now is we're ready to launch this so that the families receive email notifications 24 hours a day if their child has, like I said, either searched or viewed something online that makes the system generate that alert. Parents receive alerts via email, and it will have like specific directions, like if you're, who to contact, what their next step should be. So the next step will be a letter going out from the district explaining Go Guardian Beacon and what to expect during the school day and what to expect, as a parent if it's outside of the school day. We've certainly used the system already to bring a couple of students in and have really good conversations with counselors. It's definitely brought certain searches to our attention already just in the couple of months that we've kind of kept it small scale. Right now, the only people getting the alerts is administration, but the counselors, the psychologists, the social workers, the guidance counselors, and the rest of the administration will begin to get these alerts, and then the parents will get the email notifications starting within the next couple of weeks. So this was presented also at our last mental health committee meeting, and we talked about this again then, and we wanted to speak to the Board of Education about it tonight before it's formally launched to the entire district. SEL surveys, this is something that, kind of the silver lining of what comes out of COVID. We started doing SEL surveys, and we found it, we talked about it again at our mental health committee on Friday, and our mental health staff really feels that this is something that's really important that we continue. So we're now doing it twice a year. We'll do it in August, right before students return to school, and then we do it again in February, just like, is anything new that we should know about? Are you looking for anyone from the mental health staff to reach out to your child? And then we follow up on anything that we find in those surveys. So we've gotten in touch with some new parents, or we've been able to have a student hook up with a counselor because of these surveys. So we plan to continue doing that. There's just 3 quick questions. We try to keep them the same, really consistent, so it's easy for families. Like, oh, good, that survey came out. Actually, I am going to say, yes, I do want someone to reach out to my child, or I want someone to reach out to me. And so, it's very thoughtfully kept the same across all grade levels and across, each time the survey goes out. And May is Mental Health Month. That's next month. So just in preparation for what's coming up next, the high school, they do a positivity week. So again, it's, we look at mental health, but we also look at how do we keep kids positive in all of this. The middle school's doing bulletin boards and door decorating contests. The pictures you see there are from last year. Just they sent me some pictures. I thought they were really cool to show you what comes out of that kind of a contest. So excited to see that. We have a suicide prevention program for our 9th graders, so that happens during Mental Health Month. And the Miller Avenue and Wading River, they will continue lessons about resilience, which, again, like I said, those character traits are very specifically targeted for different months. So resilience is a great mental health topic to talk about in the month of May. And finally, what are our next steps? So, at our mental health meeting, we're talking about how do we continue Wildcats with Character, grow it even bigger, and as well as, making our Empowering Minds program even more meaningful. We're beginning the process of an MTSS system for behavior and SEL. In addition to the RTI program that we already have for academics, we're looking at how do we come to the table in a multi-tiered system of support and look at the whole child. So again, we've had a couple of meetings and we're looking at what we can have in place for next year for our MTSS system to incorporate behavior and SEL. So that's really exciting. That's a big one. And we talked again at our meeting on Friday about creating a subcommittee just to review and update our suicide prevention plan. In that plan, we would incorporate the Go Guardian Beacon program and just take a look, at what needs to be, just review it and determine what needs to be updated. And that's it. Thank you so much to the Board of Education for having me here tonight to speak about this. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Can you repeat what the acronym for GSA Positivity Week? I missed that.
The acronym, I don't want to mess it up.
GSA, what does that mean? High school
GSA is
GSA? Oh, okay, thank you.
There we go.
And then the other question I had was in terms of the process for what does beginning that process look like for the MTSS system? Is that something that parents who have end of the year meetings is it going to be incorporated at this school year at all, or is that something for next year?
It'll be for next year. So what we're looking at now is what sort of platform do we want to use to house all the data? Like when you look at, academic data, it's a little more quantifiable than behavior and SEL. So we're looking at what kind of screenings we would want to use as SEL screeners next year, what platform we would want to use to store that information in a meaningful way. Are we incorporating our academic data into the same platform as the SEL data? So we're still just looking at, what kind of training might teachers need to be able to input that data and then utilize it at, really like RTI data teams. So nothing this year except for the process of figuring out the platform and the like how we would roll that out for next year. It takes a long time to build that kind of a system.
It's a big one, like you said.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's exciting, it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to see the monthly tier for behavior. I was curious if the review is annual that you normally do of our protocol, or is it a function of the new state ed documents that were released, the guide?
Exactly. So that's, as soon as that came out, the state gave us the Columbia screener, risk assessment screener, which we use a different risk, we have a risk assessment screener in our packet, but as soon as the state's saying this is the one that we kind of would recommend that you use, or, in their guidance document, that was one of the big pieces. And then plus, like I said, building in the Go Guardian Beacon, those were enough pieces to say, I think it's time to put a subcommittee together and take a look at that.
There's a lot of resources in there.
It was actually a very good document from the state. I was very pleased with it.
Thank you. It's great to see this multifaceted approach to SEL, right? I had a question regarding the mentoring at the high school level.
Yes.
So maybe it's a little bit of detail, but how do you identify mentors and mentees? Are you looking at a group of students that maybe volunteer for this position as a mentor, or?
The mentors are teachers,
Oh,
so
they
we
are
looked,
teachers.
yes, so
Okay.
we looked at, just sort of knowing the staff and who connects with students, and we picked 5 teachers that are a little different from each other, so when we're making those matches, you know what I mean, you might say, like, this student should be in the mentor program, and that's the mentor that they should have, like, of those 5, so, half, there's 5 of them, but female and male mentors, some are special ed teachers, some work with AP students most of the time. So sometimes our students are getting to know a teacher that they never would have had through their own academic program, but we knew that, like, maybe personality-wise, they would be a match. In terms of choosing the students, we really did look first at, like, attendance from a very, who had poor attendance last year. That was one piece. Who was failing classes? And then started almost similar to what I'm talking about with, like, an MTSS system, like, which of our students kind of seems like disengaged. And then parents were provided a letter, and they did have to sign on for their students to become part of the mentor program.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question, like, what can parents do at home to help support that effort, right? Like, do we give them any input as to, maybe you want to provide some, guidance or something at home, or ask how it's going, that kind of thing? Because I always feel a lot of this, starts at home, helping your own child. Sometimes parents may want some pointers as to how best to do something with their child. So is there opportunity for that for them?
At this point, it hasn't been a program really to support that parent piece. It's really just been within the school day to have the student have a trusted adult at school. Someone that was going to check in on them, how's it going? And just that, just knowing that connection, having a connection to a trusted adult is just such an important factor for students. So we did not expand it to, the parents are aware, of course, and the parent would have access to the mentor if they needed to speak to them. If they had input, we would happily take that input, but there hasn't been a parent component to it. Yeah, it's a great question.
Mr. Poole, where do we currently house our academic data? Do we just do it internally on the cloud?
We have internal Google Drives with spreadsheets for the most part. Mr. Meisel, is that correct?
Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Vanish, a quick question.
Yes.
I applaud your efforts in this area because I think it's critical that we start to put these building blocks in place with everything that we've experienced over the last 2 years with COVID and the social emotional impact that it's had. When you talk about the Go Guardian Beacon, I believe there's an opportunity to enable parent reporting. So I know that you mentioned that there's going to be an alert that's sent out, but I'm also pretty confident there's an app that the parents can download on their phone to see the data with regards to the websites that the students are visiting, or what, frequency, those types of things. Is there a plan to enable that for parents in the district?
We haven't done that yet, but we could certainly revisit that because that might be helpful because part of the question is when a parent, if it's over a weekend and a parent receives this alert, what information are they getting? So I think that what you're speaking about would be something worthy of us really taking a look into.
I would say yes. I think the alert right now is really not to cloud it with a lot of emails, really about self-harm, suicide, or violence, and then alert parents directly to that. But you're correct, there is an app. So phase 2 would be to advise parents of that app, and they can go in and get a deeper picture of the browsing that students are doing on their devices. Not only their browsing, but their attempted searches. So it's not only, what they were successful searching for, what are they attempting to search for? And those things would be accessible to a parent to go in and look when they wanted to go in and look on an app. So that's definitely phase 2 for that, but phase 1 of those 3 priority areas to protect children.
You more tools to have those, detailed or I guess educated conversations with a child, because you're able to not only just react in the moment, but actually, process, get a better sense of again what they're looking at, what content they're reviewing, and take steps to have a more informative discussion with them.
I think you're absolutely right, and having parents look at it, process it, and have the conversation with them definitely would be a lot of value for parents and for students too.
And what's interesting about Beacon, it's not only searches, is if they type something into a Google Doc. So there was some creative writing going on this week. And so there was kids were expressing themselves. So if it was like something, times if it's a little like dark, I guess I would say, or there was one month where their students were writing about like a character in a book, and when they use the word death and they're speaking about that through a character in a book, in a doc, we're still getting those alerts. So what we're looking at is it a sign, then we can look back and see, we can see the Google Classroom they were just on to see like, oh, they were just writing about maybe like, like Julius Caesar. We can see what it's tied to, or sometimes we're saying, oh, no, someone, we're gonna bring this student in and have a conversation and contact the parent. So we've been doing it already.
To Jim's point, in terms of having contextual data, do you have, in the phase 1 rollout, is there going to be any associated, is it going to say any description, or is it just going to be an alert? Like your student may have, researched the word and then where it was located?
So at this point, right, the email will just say, that the system has alerted us to the fact that your child might be searching something, and then it's just really telling them to take their child's computer and take a look at it. Yeah, right. And we've had many hours of conversation about that for that exact reason that you're bringing up. But we figure that getting the message to parents is better than not. Yeah. So I think that there might still be some working through some of this as it rolls out. That's why we've been getting alerts through Beacon. There's 3 of us administratively that have been getting them since November, which was a great way to do it because we were able to really get a feel for like when the alerts are generated, what are they generated based on. So.
And the correspondence or the communication that goes back, I'm sure there's a contact that the parent can reach out to at the school district to discuss that, or is it or not?
Yes. So what'll happen is the parent will be told that you got this alert, please go speak to your child. Again, look at their Chromebook. But if there's going to be times that the parent receives that and there's no one available at the school, but as soon as that child walks back into the school, the staff will have gotten the alert at that point, and the child will be, brought in to meet with someone from the mental health staff.
I mean, I just know, I struggle, I'm an engineer, I struggle with Chromebooks a lot, often trying to find things for my kids. So I'm just looking from that perspective, if I went to go on it, I know I would have a hard time. I might just turn around and say, okay, who could I reach out to?
Right.
At the high school level, I have multiple teachers, obviously, so it'd be helpful, I think, for parents, depending on it. My thought process there is some kind of guidance for the parent of who to reach out to, because it's great. Phenomenal that you're getting alerted, but then what if you needed that extra contact?
In terms of seeing what your child was actually looking at?
Principal, do I go back to the guidance counselor, that kind of thing?
Right. I mean, like I said, in terms of the following day, in the letter it'll tell you that someone from the staff will be reaching out to you.
Okay.
In the moment, we'll be giving phone numbers. If you feel this is really an emergency, you're going to call 911. Use Dash as a resource, and we gave a couple of different resources. And then we're also working on our mental health webpage and making sure that there's more resources readily available. Because to your point, if you're a parent, you're anxious in that moment, you need to really be directed, right?
I'm using your analogy of like they were doing research for a paper.
Right.
I go on Chromebook and I don't know how to use it.
Exactly.
And I'm like, is there a problem and who can I reach out to? But you guys would catch it the next day.
Yes, that's the plan right now.
Great, thank you.
Yes, no, you're welcome.
Go ahead.
I can wait.
I've
been waiting. Go ahead, Jerry.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Something off topic. I don't know if you want to.
I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Von Eschen, Ms. Blasey, Mr. Meinster, who we do need our parents' help, parents and guardians' help with Go Guardian Beacon alerts. They have gotten Beacon alerts at all hours of the night, and over the last 4 or 5 months, they have addressed every one of them, and the vast majority are something inconsequential, but there have been a few where it was important to reach out. So opening this up to, so thank you to them, because they have done a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of late hours where I'm probably sleeping, but thank you for all of that. And having our parents be our partners with that and get those alerts, I think part of the letter will be to advise parents to set those emails under a special VIP alert. So if you get that email, that should come to your phone and ding a little bit. And then it's really a conversation with your child. You know, I got this alert, and lots of times, a child's going to say, "Well, I'm in Miss Mitchell's health class, and we are studying mental health and prevention ideas." So that's why I was searching for that, and it's going to make sense. But thank you.
You're welcome.
To all of you for that.
So the one question I wanted to have was, I'm seeing Empowering Minds and Wildcats with Character, and I had the opportunity a couple of years ago to, I think we had one of the regions here, and I sat, it was 9th grade, I think, student performance about social media, online bullying, using apps, and that's great, I think, for 9th graders, maybe like 5-10 years ago when 9th graders were the only ones having phones. I know 4th graders, 5th graders now have access to those apps, to those phones, and are we doing anything to engage them earlier about the consequences of using some of those apps and sending videos or, communicating? Because even though it's not directly maybe SEL, I think it could definitely, affect children's mental health if they receive something or they're sending something to the master of the content. Are we doing anything to engage students at a younger age than
we have been talking about, that sort of falls under like digital literacy and all, so we've been talking about that, but nothing honestly this year, but certainly something to continue looking at, because you're exactly right. They're getting younger and younger, and I say to my own children, what you put out there is out there forever. And making sure that kids understand that, or what you open, is just as dangerous as what you put out there if you get something from someone. So
I mean, some parents, we know of some apps, but they're creating apps every day, to, communicating and sharing documents and videos. It's so just curious if we could.
Yeah, it's been
look at having some assemblies at the younger age.
Digital citizenship and cyber safety, and that we've been exploring. Not so easy to find a presenter on cyberbullying and social media that can speak to children and speak to families at the same time. I know at times the high school, when they start the school year, they will have an assembly on social media, the do's and don'ts of connected, but sometimes connected with the code of conduct. But you're absolutely right. Students are getting those devices at a very young age.
5th grade. It's not even just the apps, because my kids I have to like approve an app for them to download, but just texting each other, it can get
Yeah, I remember when Mike attended that workshop and then suggested that, and COVID kind of stalled a lot of initiatives like that. But one thing that I would love to see, especially if it is becoming problematic or difficult to find somebody, is if we could use our high school and middle school students to educate our younger students. I'm seeing you shake your head, so I'm sure you've thought of
I
this
just
before.
spoke to the
Yeah.
club advisors about doing something
Awesome,
Wildcats with
awesome.
Character for the
Yeah.
younger students. So in
Yeah,
that same
exactly.
that same
'Cause
mindset.
They hear it from us all the time, parents.
Right.
But if they can hear it from their older,
Yes.
slightly older peers, I feel like that would be really meaningful.
It's more powerful, right? Yeah,
All right,
definitely.
awesome.
Right.
Okay,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much.
You're welcome.
We have next Mr. Arcuri on the repair reserve hearing. Slightly less exciting.
Good evening. Tonight, there is a resolution on the agenda that is up for consideration, resolution number 2122-229. It pertains to awarding a maintenance project to Renew Contracting and Restoration Incorporated. Part of the funding source in order to complete that maintenance work is coming from the Repair Reserve Fund. In order to use funds from the Repair Reserve Fund, we are required to have a public hearing. The public hearing was advertised inside of the 2 local papers, and this is an opportunity for the public to share their concerns if they happen to have any. It is an opportunity for the Board of Education members to also share any concerns about using these funds for this particular purpose. So, background info. Section 6D of General Municipal Law authorizes the Board of Education to establish a reserve fund by resolution. The Repair Reserve Fund was established July 1st, 2005 in the original amount of $610,299. The current balance in the reserve fund is $27,053. Interest earnings on money within the reserve fund become part of the reserve. Voter approval is not required to expend money from the Repair Reserve Fund. The Board of Education, by majority vote, is authorized to approve expenditures from the Repair Reserve Fund by resolution. A resolution to expend money from the Repair Reserve Fund is subject to public notice and public hearing. That's what I was mentioning earlier. The public notice was advertised inside the 2 local papers, posted on the district website, as well as posted outside the district office. And the public hearing is what we're having this evening. The project, maintenance project, pertains to the Prodell Middle School exterior fascia painting. The scope of the project is to clean the upper areas that are outlined in the pictures here. As you can see, you see the black marks on them. So the project scope is to give the fascia a light cleaning, and then paint the upper fascia only on the exterior from the front all around to the gymnasium in the back, approximately 6,300 square feet. Paint the stucco to match the existing finish. The lifts and materials to complete the work are provided by the contractor. The total cost for this work is $54,020. I am recommending funding the project partially with the remaining funds in the Repair Reserve Fund of $27,053, and the remaining $26,967 would come from the general fund maintenance budget, 2021-22. As I mentioned, the public notice was advertised in the March 17th editions of the district's 2 newspapers of record. Are there any questions related to the maintenance project, related to the hearing, related to the dollars?
A few questions. One is, this is the first time that this was ever performed? Any type of maintenance or cleaning or painting of the soffit?
On this particular fascia, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there what's the future maintenance?
They say that the painting should give us 7 to 10 years.
Okay.
We did a similar painting project on the wrestling center building. That was our first endeavor to actually use paint to cover the stucco area. It was a very successful project there. That's why we have extended it. At a previous Board of Education meeting, we have awarded a similar fascia painting project for the high school. Now this is pertaining to the same type of fascia painting, but it's at Prodell Middle School.
Was there any discussion with the district architect to provide maybe a maintenance-free material over the stucco, like a cladding or something?
There was definitely consideration both in discussion for the 2015 bond development as well as multiple capital projects since then. In front of the Prodell Middle School, over the visitors area entrance, we actually did remove about 16 feet of panel, replaced it with a vinyl panel. The cost to do that is roughly 20 times the cost to actually paint it. The origin of the staining is believed to be twofold. One, there were a lot of large trees that used to provide coverage over the sides of the buildings, both at the high school as well as the middle school. That's part one. Part two is also there was an acid wash done to the rooftops. I want to say 20 years ago. That could have also contributed to it also. And according to the architect, just the general acid rain is also contributing factor to the discoloring of this type of stucco material. It is a porous material. It is a cement type material. It is not flat. It is not smooth. So there are little pockets that actually will capture dirt.
Is the successful stucco painting a similar color?
It's going to match the color that is on the lower side of the softening area.
The previous success that you had?
Yes.
It's the same color?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Similar.
Okay.
I don't want to say the same
No,
color.
I'm just-
The
yeah.
wrestling center's a little bit more tannish. This will be a little bit more whitish.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You know, my questions are always in an effort of having your back, right? So it's not criticism. Just questions regarding product. Has it been tested for anything containing ACM or anything like that?
Yes, the actual joints between each panel
Right.
is a hot asbestos caulking material. We do not anticipate any disturbance of that caulking material during the cleaning process. That is one of the factors that why actually removing this fascia material in order to replace it with a vinyl type material is a very costly endeavor.
And then the cleaning process, we doing a mechanical cleaning like wire brush, or we doing power
We're doing
washing?
a light bleach and water with a nylon brush. It is not a power washing. It is a light bleach water mixture that is going to be used to actually, I'm going to say, remove any type of mold, mildew, residual effect of that to kill whatever's there, let it dry, and then come in with their base coat and then their finish coat.
Okay, so they're just using like a bleach solution?
Correct.
It will look beautiful.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions from the community? Nope.
Okay, we'll go right into the budget presentation.
Okay, tonight is April 12th. We are here to review the final budget for the 2022-2023 school year. I'm very happy to be standing here today saying that the state budget was finally adopted on April 9th, a little bit later than we would have liked. So some of the information that was provided to you on Friday wound up changing due to our state aid numbers changing. As you'll see when I go through the process, our state aid was reduced by approximately $127,000, which had impacted our tax levy value that we had previously calculated, as well as pushing us to reduce our expenditure budget since there was a reduction in revenue. I plan on covering all those areas tonight, and we'll get right to it. On January 18th, 2022, the executive budget school aid report was released, and the state aid projected was $15,080,503. This does not include the $172,800 that was available for universal pre-kindergarten program grant. Since that date, we have used the $15,080,000 as our revenue number for state aid for the March 8th, March 15th, and March 22nd budget presentations. As I previously mentioned, on April 9th, the state budget was adopted, and now the state aid for SWR was reduced to $14,952,657. However, on the positive side, there was an increase in our universal pre-K grant allocation which has increased our value to $405,000. So we saw a net decrease of $127,846 inside of our general fund revenue from state aid. As I mentioned in previous presentations, it is important to not forget we are still funding a lot of programs for 2022-2023 from federal grant dollars provided to us. And that at the end of the 22-23 school year, we will have to visit these programs and see which ones can be rolled into the general fund and which ones cannot. Overview of the 22-23 budget maintains all programs from the current year, increases the number of high school course offerings, restructures the middle school to a 9-period day. To date, we have shared that we were adding 3 additional nurses as part of the 22-23 budget. So that would have provided 2 nurses in each of our buildings. In an effort to make up for the state aid loss that we were unable to raise in taxes, we have modified the nursing plan to go with 2 nurses at the secondary buildings and a shared nurse between the 2 elementary buildings. In discussions with the elementary principals as well as the elementary nurses, they were confident that this particular model would be successful there. So it isn't something that we were taken off guard with, meaning by going down to a shared nurse between the 2 buildings, because there was consideration to possibly try that if it became very, very difficult in order to hire nurses, because districts across the island have been a very hard time hiring nurses. So part of our initial rollout was to bring an additional one to the secondary building, so each secondary building had a second nurse, and the second nurse that would have been hired would have been shared between the 2 elementary buildings. So we are returning to a model that we're confident is going to work for us. Also included in 22-23 budget, it improves the elementary library program by adding a shared librarian. The literacy coach position has been removed from the 22-23 budget. The one-time maintenance project budget has been reduced. The early morning ensemble buses at the middle school are no longer needed and have been removed from the budget. Since the music program is being rolled into the 9-period day, there is no longer an actual need to have these buses. So there is nothing being lost there. The following positions related to the COVID-19 pandemic have been removed from the budget. 5 custodial aides that assisted the custodial team. 8.8 certified staff FTEs that supported the 6-foot spacing at the elementary schools. 7 part-time monitors that supported the 6-foot spacing for lunch at all of the buildings in 21-22. Class size, as is pretty typical with the information we know today about the number of registrants, we are still looking at 6 sections, 20.6 in a class. However, as the registrations continue to come in, it isn't going to surprise us if we have to go add a 7th section. There is classroom space inside of the building, so as the initial registrations as additional registrations come in between now and September, there is flexibility there. And for grade 1, we are anticipating 6 sections, 20.3 as the average class size. Grade 2, 7 sections, 20.3. Grade 3, 5 sections, 22 in a class. Fourth grade, 6 sections at 23. And in 5th grade, 6 sections at 20.8. Universal Pre-Kindergarten Program started in 21-22 using newly provided state grant funding combined with existing federal grant funds. Students will once again be selected via lottery for up to 75 available spaces in this program. The district's state grant allocation has been increased, as I mentioned earlier, from $172,800 to $405,000. For 2022-2023, up to an additional $118,350 of federal grant funds are anticipated to be applied to fully fund the program. So what that's saying is, with our UPK allotment, there's approximately $5,400 per student, but when we go out to look for a institution that will host this for us, the cost to provide that is greater than the $5,400 allotment. So in order to extend this offering to our community members, we have to subsidize that cost by adding additional funding. We are in a good spot for 22-23 where it can be funded from the federal grant dollars.
Just a quick question on that.
Sure.
At what point does the funding kind of ask us to host it in-house?
So for every,
I know there's a space issue.
yeah, no,
but,
that's
you know,
there's definitely a space issue for the school district. And just to jump on what Glenn was saying, we'll have to go out to RFP for those additional 43 seats. There is no guarantee that the price comes back at the price we have with St. Anselm's right now. So right now, out of that 118, we've already accounted for 50. We'll have to go back to the ESSER Carissa grant and see what we aren't going to do that we originally planned on, or where are some additional savings from things we planned on doing with those fundings to make sure that we have enough to cover the 43 additional seats. In order for us to staff a classroom, you're required a full-time teacher and a full-time para in the classroom. So that's probably $200,000 more than the $405,000 grant allocation, and I haven't really touched curriculum or any additional furniture that may not be. We have furniture at Briarcliff. I'm not saying we should go to Briarcliff because now you need a principal, you need a nurse, you need a security guard, you need a custodian along the way. I think some of the options, I think certainly after we get through this school year and next school year, we should be considering what would it mean to bring the program back in-house for the 75 children. Where would it go? How would it impact class size if we did that? How would it impact the use of space in the buildings right now? Right now for next year, even if we wanted to, we don't have four open classrooms between the two buildings. So if we had 4 open classrooms right now, we could consider 4 regular open classrooms. You could consider, okay, we'll put 2 at Miller Avenue, we'll put 2 at Wading River, we'll have it in-house. There is a Scope Educational Services as a model where they'll come into your building. So you provide the nurse, the psychologist, they provide the teacher and the teaching assistant, and they would come in likely at the grant cost per student. But we don't have the space for that right now. Many districts do that. So when we go out to RFP, we'll go out to RFP for a couple of models. Might not be a bad idea to ask for what the in-house cost would be if we provided the space for it. But we are definitely going to be challenged with the UPK grant dollars. I think we'll get it in place this year. If you don't use it, you lose it. So we'll try to have all 75 seats operational for next year. But for 23, 24, it's going to be a rich sort of in-depth discussion about UPK, the 405,000. It's reaching 75 students. You know, do you want to reach 120, or how do we make sure that we can use the 405 without having to add 200 or 250 from the general fund to support a UPK program that we've never carried inside of the general fund before? It'd be a recurring cost.
Is this a recurring? Are we at risk
We're
every
going
year to lose
no.
this?
As long as we use it, we'll be rewarded that amount. We've never
I know
seen
it's hard to
UPK
forecast,
funding.
but is this a trend where we're going to be looking at another 200,000 next year? And is the state funding UPK more?
It was a late push, so it wasn't in the governor's original executive. I think this came out of the legislative sessions that they would fund school districts up to a certain percentage. So if we're averaging 125, 130 kindergarten students, we'll have 70. We'll still have 50 seats left. So in order to have, and the funding is interesting. The funding is only for a full-day program. So we can put together a half-day program and have 150 students come for a half-day. You can only have a program 180 days, at least 5 hours, and the program must also, be full-time for it. So
you said full-time is different. It's not like it could be like
5
a late
hours.
start and an early release.
Yeah, there could be some creative ways to stagger it, but again, it's very, very late. We were looking forward to, so we're going to move forward with the award for the 32 seats for St. Anselm's. They've been great partners this school year. And then when we do the lottery on May 3rd, we will pull tickets all the way up to 75. And that way we'll have the list of families that are eligible for that UPK seat. So we'll have the names before we actually award another RFP to the successful. As if we're lucky. I have to tell you, I'm not fully confident that we're going to get prices and seats. There'll be a lot of competition for seats, that we're going to get pricing that is going to allow us to use the 43 seats. But I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to hope that that does come in. And there are some local providers. So
are we committing to 75 additional seats, or are we just looking to hopefully get to that point?
I'm hoping that we get to those 75
Okay.
seats. I think it's a great benefit for the district students, for families, financial benefit for us to maximize that funding. But we are going to have to go out and see what the prices are and see if it's manageable. If the prices come back too high and we want to use additional federal funding, then we would have to have a conversation about, what is it in the federal grants that we plan to do that we're willing to pull back from in order to support UPK next year. So that's definitely a decision we'll have to make when it comes in. So we're going to go out very quickly and hopefully have some responses back and be able to identify somebody early to mid-May, and then move forward with 75 in UPK.
Just to clarify, so you said if you don't use it, you'll lose it. That our projected state aid for next year isn't based on the current enrollment for this year, though, right? It's
For
the same.
UPK, the 32, we used it this year. We have it. That's locked in. So next year we have an additional allotment of $5,400 for 43 students, which is the value that Mr. Arcuri shared. You have the option of starting that program mid-year. We could start it in January or start it in September. I prefer, if we're going to do it, I'd rather hurry up and get it done and try to get it in place for September. So if we do use it, if we use that additional funding in the 22-23 school year, then we're going to lock that funding in for as long as we use it. And I have never seen the UPK funding once given to a school district go away.
But I'm trying to understand, if we don't use that funding for next year, does the following year's numbers get reduced by that amount?
If we don't use the funding for next year, it is highly likely that that funding would go away. They would say,
Okay.
well, you're not using it, we're going to give it to a district that will use it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So as Mr. Poole mentioned, St. Anselm's was the successful respondent to the initial district-issued request for proposal. At the March 22nd meeting, there was a resolution approved awarding the RFP for those 32 seats to St. Anselm's. It is very important to acknowledge that, because at that time, there was no thought, there was no consideration that we would be getting additional funding. If there was thought and consideration for that, we would have held off and then gone out with a single RFP for the 75 available slots, in order to possibly obtain a price for the full 75. But since we already awarded the RFP on March 22nd, we're going to complete that obligation at that awarded price, and then go back out for the remaining 43 seats, and hope that we actually receive a competitive at equal price, or maybe even a better price, since there's additional seats.
So just to clarify that,
Sure.
we have the 32 that we're going to award.
Yes.
Then we're going
That
to go out
have
for
been awarded.
What was that?
That have been
Has
awarded.
been. And then we're going to go out for 75.
No, 43. The difference between 32 and 75 is 43 seats.
So what if this St. Anselm doesn't come back with the lowest number?
It doesn't,
For the
at this
43.
point, for that next RFP, whatever comes back for those 43 seats, whether it's St. Anselm's, whether it's another company, whatever that value is, that's the value that we would pay for that price. That doesn't have to be the lowest price.
So we're asking for unit price per student?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the actual grant is $5,400 per student. That's what drives the 54 into the 405,000, is how you come up with 75 available seats.
So is there a possibility that we may have to retract the resolution that we've previously approved?
No, we have awarded that RFP on March 22nd.
Okay.
So tonight, we are finalizing the contract for that on this evening's agenda.
And is there a possibility that we may have 32 students going to one
That is-
organization and 43 students going to another one?
That is actually
That is
very,
something-
very
We don't-
common.
We don't want that.
That is definitely, there's a possibility that no one additional vendor even has 43 open systems. Many districts got additional funding. We will be in competition with other districts who have UPK funding. I think it's great that we've already locked in 32 seats at a price that we can manage. So we've got the 32 seats guaranteed. We're done. We're set for next year. How the 43 come back? Many districts have multiple partnerships. I know a neighboring district to the south has 3 different UPK providers, and the lottery is you get pulled for the lottery and you have your first preference, then you get your second preference, or your third preference, because no one place in a large district could take 300 UPK students, so they spread them around.
So how are we designating who goes where?
God bless you.
That's going to be lottery. So the first lottery for the 32 seats, we have the St. Anselm's.
So then you're not going to have parents say, oh, my son needs a carpool with my neighbor got this person. You're not going to have those problems?
Well, we may, but unfortunately, we just got the funding on Sunday, so we are in we're not in a position where we normally like to proactively plan and do that. We have to react quickly in order to, if we want to secure those 43 seats. So we'll see. We'll come back to public presentation with what comes back from the RFP process and consider what's possible.
And just remind me, Glenn.
Sure.
I know when the additions were added to Miller Ave, there was room for an additional addition at some point, but it was
There
only
was.
2 classrooms more?
It was four
more
additional classrooms to the south of the kindergarten wing.
Right. So what would that total capacity be then, approximately?
Four additional classes.
No, I meant in terms of student body.
From a pre-K standpoint, you could have no more than 18 with two instructional people inside of the space.
So 18 times 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Or if you want to go to adding an additional staff member, an additional aide, additional TA, you could go as high as 20.
Yeah, so there's the square footage area, which is the issue, but there's also obviously the
cost.
support staff or the staff
Correct.
that's necessary for it.
I think it's very, very important to not lose sight, though, that the district was on a perfect timeline with the information provided to us inside the executive budget. They told us we're going to get $172,800. It was proactively done. We had awarded the RFP come March 22nd. We were in perfect position so our residents, our parents could see who was actually going to get their spot early. Until at the last hour, no one anticipated getting this type of an increase. So I don't want anyone, whether they're watching on television, whether they're sitting here, to actually think that there was a poor planning. It was poor delivery from the state's perspective to show us something where we were in perfect spot. And now it's going to make it as complicated as Mr. Lewis mentioned earlier. Those conditions could surface, but at no fault of ours.
Right. And you're obviously still working through it, so.
It was only Monday.
I have
Sunday.
one more question about this,
Sure.
and I hesitate to even ask this question, but in terms of the use it or lose it funding,
Yes.
and trying to be as creative as possible with that. I know Mr. P does an amazing job of doing the lottery, and I heard Mrs. Smith is in on it this year too, and that's exciting. But in terms of the logistics that you mentioned of drawing names for the remaining 75, is it worth the consideration, and this may or may not be fair, of capturing any pre-existing registrants at St. Anselm's who may be our students who would not be pulled from the lottery in order to capture as much state funding as possible to prepare for next year as well?
St. Anselm's will definitely go through that process. Even last year, some of the names pulled were already registered privately with St. Anselm's, so then the funding switched from the family to the district to cover the cost. So they'll definitely do that. I do know St. Anselm's has a few more seats, so that certainly when we go back to RFP, I expect a response. I'm not sure how many. It may just be a few. We have 2 rooms at St. Anselm's. They're at 16 and 16. Those rooms could go to 18 and 18.
Okay.
So there'll be a couple of seats available there, and we'll see. I'm certain St. Anselm's will respond a second time. We'll see what comes forth. But they certainly do that, you know. So, good news is that we have the additional funding. It's definitely a challenge to try to make this work in some way, and hopefully in the future we can do this award by mid-year. We know the funding's guaranteed and have a plan that we all agree upon and move forward in a pre-planned way, unless, as somebody had asked, are we going to go from 75 to 100 and 125? In which case, Mr. Perez, if we built 4 more rooms at Miller Avenue and then had funding for the 75, and then all of a sudden we get another 50 funding for another 50 students, then we have the problem is where are those two classrooms going to go? So we're not alone. I think speaking with colleagues, a lot of districts are in a similar position. Like, how are we going to manage this? Everybody likes to pre-plan, but nobody wants to give up on the funding. They want to make use of it, but it does cause it will cause some challenges.
Yeah, and there'll be strategic planning, obviously, that's going to come down the pike in the next couple of years. Just thinking ahead, one of the questions I would have as a board member would be, obviously, the financial impact of it, right? The space that we have to do it, but also what's the net benefit in terms of outcome of the students coming out of a UPK program outside of the school district, and what can we do better in-house? So we've already had 1 year, right? Yeah, right. I would think that's the case. We've already had 1 year, and we're going into that next year. It would be good, and I think the other board members would agree, to have data points with regard to what are those outcomes coming out of universal.
Yeah, definitely. I know Mr. Meinster's working on that and collecting that,
Okay.
so that over the summer, if not early fall at the latest, we'll have an update on, just
Another
and-
report
and that-
that-
another
that
report,
he's-
yeah, another to add to the list. That
Thank
there
you,
was mention
Alan.
of that at CDC, and that data will be exciting to see. What are the outcomes and what interventions were utilized, and where have there been potentially even cost savings, down the, so.
More to come on UPK. Certainly, we'll have an update at the next meeting, and then one again in May.
Thank you.
Okay, a little bit of history. The expenditure budget average for a last 5 years is 2.13%, and the average tax levy increase over the last 5 years has been 1.15%. Moving on to the 22-23 expenditure budget. Previously presented, we had reflected a 2.95% increase, or dollar increase of $2,381,992. Based on the reduction, we are now looking at a 2.87% budget-to-budget increase, or $2,314,523. At the last 3 meetings, we have presented the 3 different categories. Since we had to change, taking out the nurse, that actually affected the salary category, as well as the employee benefit category, meaning the health benefits, pension costs, FICA, Medicare, et cetera. So the main change, the only change from what was previously presented to now, to get to the 2.87%, or to get to the reduction of $67,469 between the 2 budgets, fell in the salary category and the employee benefit section.
Mr. Poole, can you just provide a little bit more detail on the removal of that position as a result of the state aid change, and how we're going to meet the need that was identified?
Sure. So if you recall, the main driver for adding those second nurses was really extended day coverage and coverage for the nurses during that lunch period, and that was of high value. All of our buildings have something going on, typically, perhaps before school and after school. So as Mr. Arcuri mentioned, we've had several meetings on planning meetings, and one of the conditions that was discussed is, what if we are not successful finding 3 qualified nurses for the school district? What could the model look like at the elementary level? So there is a way where and this was a conversation with our nurses and our lead nurse. There is a way to stagger that shared nurse so that they can provide a lunch coverage for both buildings, And then the shift would be Miller Avenue would have to have their clubs, which I believe are on Wednesdays after school. The Miller Avenue clubs would have to be on a different day than the Wading River clubs after school. That way we would ensure that there's a nurse there for those club periods. On those days where, where the clubs are at Wading River, the nurse would be there late, and on the days where they're at Miller Avenue, that nurse would be there late. So we can definitely provide the coverage with that one shared nurse, and meet the needs. I may not get that long list of 32 things that I shared a few meetings back, but I think I feel confident. Actually, the recommendation was brought to me from the nurses to say, hey, if we can't get that other nurse, we feel confident that with some good scheduling, that we can meet the needs of both buildings for extended coverage with a single nurse between both buildings. Additional, I want to make it clear that there'll still be a nurse, full-time nurse at Wading River, a full-time nurse at Miller Avenue. The difference from what we've been presenting will be that the two elementaries will share, the additional nurse will be shared between the two to provide coverage.
What about the second additional nurse? We're going to hire.
So we'll hire, so we already have 5 nurses. We'll hire 2 more. We'll have 2 at the high school for that wraparound, 2 at the middle school, 1 at Wading River, 1 at Miller Avenue, and then that 1 additional nurse will be shared between the 2 and scheduled to provide the coverage when the students are there after school or before school.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at the budget in the proposed 3-part form, that is a required way to see the budget. It is part of the 6-day budget notice. Administrative budget increased by 1.64%. The capital component decreased by 7.78%, primarily due to reduction in maintenance projects. And the program component increased by 5.23%. For a total increase, $2,314,523, or 2.87%. Contingent budget facts, something that we have to mention. The contingent budget adopted by the Board of Education would always be less than the proposed budget. For the district to be considered tax levy limit compliant, the 22-23 tax levy would be equal to the 21-22 tax levy of $55,622,563. All organizations, including not-for-profit, using district facilities would be charged a fee for using the facilities. This includes fields. The contingent budget must adhere to the administrative cap requirement. Required reductions, all equipment funding must be removed from the budget. The Board of Education must exercise its best judgment in determining what the minimum expenditures shall be within the limitations imposed by the administrative and contingent budget caps. As of today, the contingent budget for 22-23 would be $82,054,946. The required contingent budget reduction would be for equipment, $391,616. Additional reductions needed to meet the contingent budget amount is approximately $555,545. Looking at the 22-23 revenue, if there is no questions related to the expenditure budget. 2022-23 state aid, as I mentioned earlier, January 18th, 2022, the executive budget school aid report, it was $15,080,503. That's the amount that was used on all previous budget presentations. On April 9th, there was a reduction inside of our state aid, decrease of $127,846. However, it's important to note that the 22-23 state aid budget enacted restored 50% of foundation aid in 22-23, and they also expect to have fully restore the remaining 50% in 23-24. So that's a very important thing to not lose sight of, that foundation aid should be fully restored for us based on a previous amount for the 2023-2024 school year.
I know we've talked about foundation aid and the potential for reestablishing the formula, right, at the state level.
Yes.
So does this give us any indication as to where we are with regard to reestablishing the formula?
The only thing it gives us is we will be fully funded based on the original formula. That's what that is a step in the right direction for us. with regard to redefining the foundation aid formula, I have no new information on that as of today. I'm just happy to know that we are receiving a little bit less than 1.2 million in foundation aid, and assuming the state holds true to their word, in 2023-24, we should be seeing a little bit less than $1.2 million inside of foundation aid restored to us. That's definitely going to help our budgeting process for 23-24, that they told us that information early, assuming that they follow through with it.
Okay, and then the decrease in 127,000, is there anything in particular that you point to?
There were three primary components. There was a reduction in building aid, there was a reduction in foundation aid, and there was an increase in BOCES aid. The net change between them all amount to $127,000. As you can see from the categories here, you could see that we saw a slight decrease in high-cost excess aid. Private excess cost aid was a slight increase. BOCES aid was a slight decrease. Hardware technology, software, library, and text, minor increases. Transportation, a larger increase, about 23%. And the building aid was an increase of $104,029. Just one more thing to mention, the $405,000 for UPK, since it's a grant, that type of funding is not handled within the general fund. It's handled within the special aid fund. So that grant money is not anywhere inside of our revenue budget. It's just as a footnote to say what it is. And if you see our state aid runs inside of Newsday, you're going to see not $14,952,000. You're going to see $15,357,000. That's because they added in together, but we're not allowed to account for it in that fashion. Pilot and other local revenue. Pilot payments have a slight increase of a little bit more than $47,000. Slight decrease in adult education tuition. Slight decrease in community programs revenue. A slight increase in day school tuition. And as I'm sure you see, the more we use our capital reserve money to do capital projects, the more the bond dollars monies are gone, the more we apply reserves to offset revenues inside of our budget. We will see a decreased amount of money that we can put in order to return interest on, coupled with a lower interest rate. So we do anticipate receiving less interest and earnings for 22-23. A net decrease in other local revenue of $20,886, or a little bit more than a 0.5% decrease.
So the largest revenue budget there, pilot payments, and I always bring it up, is the fact that they're always at jeopardy, right?
Yes, a pilot payment, even though it's supposedly a contractual obligation that we are supposed to be able to count on, at any point in time, they have the ability to renegotiate by saying, we're going out of business unless if you reduce our value, which is something that we've seen here in 2017 to a great degree of a reduction of 50% of a pilot. So that's something that if that were to happen, they usually tell you right before you're setting the tax levy in October. So it's not something we could plan for early. It's something that's out of our control. I want to believe, just because I don't want to even think about a loss of $1 million pilot when I'm setting the levy inside of October, because we are levying to the limit. If that were to occur, that would be what I consider the worst case scenario, that either we find a way to fund it through unassigned, unappropriated fund balance to make up that difference, or then you would be looking at, can I get through this school year with the available funds that I have? Or the worst case, which I never see happening, would be mid-year cuts to not run something that you might have planned to run inside of the spring. But that's something out of the district's control. We don't have a seat, the district does not have a seat at the table when it comes to calculating a pilot value, determining the length of a pilot, determining whether the property should be eligible for a pilot. That is all in a taxing jurisdiction, whether it's the town of Brookhaven or the town of Riverhead.
Yeah, I'm just highlighting the fact that when you look at all the proposed budget, revenue budgets, that's the largest piece, and it's always in jeopardy. So looking forward as we plan, those reserves are more important than ever, having that.
Absolutely. Use of district reserves, balance as of July 1st, 2021. Tax reduction reserve, $3,796,370. We anticipate using zero. That is also known as a prior year state aid reserve. However, it's important to note that proposition number 2 is going to use a little bit more than, let's say, 2.8. That would leave us a balance of $898,330 at the end as of July 1st, 2022, assuming that proposition is supported by the voters. Employee Retirement System Reserve has a balance of $4,800,000. We anticipate using $1 million on the 22-23 budget. Teachers Retirement System, $970,660 balance. We anticipate using $500,000. Workers' Compensation Reserve is a balance of $662,603. We anticipate using $550,000. And the unemployment for the ERS reserve, the unemployment reserve has $501,791. We anticipate using $480,000. Previously presented the tax levy limit at 1.5943% increase. Since the state aid budget decreased our building aid allotment, since building aid is an allowable exclusion, we then had to change the calculation for the tax levy limit, which when I'm reducing an exclusion for aid coming from the state, that then passes on a greater value to the taxpayer. So in this case, we saw an increase of $60,377 between the levy that was presented on March 5th, March 12th, no, March 8th, March 15th, and March 22nd. And now we're at 1.7028. And that's one of the most frustrating things when they change the numbers so late, that we presented to date percentages, that now when people look at it, it's of no fault of ours when we get information as late as the system provides it to us. So if you look at the revenue budget as a whole, I'm going to pull that curtain back soon. The tax levy, as I had previously mentioned, 1.70% increase. State aid, a 10.93% increase. Other local revenue, a slight decrease. Appropriating fund balance, that is taking surplus funds from the 21-22 budget and applying it to the 22-23 budget as a revenue source, shows an increase of $655,304. In 21-22, we had an anomaly left over from the 19-20 school year, the 2021 school year, where due to COVID, we went above the 4% because we had savings, school was closed, kids were at home learning, not knowing whether the state was going to fully fund our state aid, cut our state aid. The decision was made not just by us, by districts across the state, to keep that COVID savings, put it in the unappropriated, unassigned fund balance code. And quickly, once we were fully restored, we applied that $1,701,000 to the 21-22 budget. That was a one-time use. We don't anticipate doing that. It was an anomaly tied to going virtual learning due to COVID. So that reduction there should be a reduction because we should never encounter that again. Using the Employee Retirement System Reserve, $601,000 in 21-22, we are increasing to $1 million, so you have an increase of a little less than $400,000. The Teachers Retirement System, first time that we're using that reserve fund to balance the budget, so there's an increase of $500,000. Unemployment Reserve, a reduction by $188,000, and Workers' Compensation Reserve, an additional use of that reserve by about $250,000.
Just a quick point to make.
Sure.
I know we had increased the tax levy this year, but there have been other years where we've received additional funding after the last run, and we've actually, reduced the tax levy before, right? So it kind of goes both ways?
When they give us additional building aid,
Right.
then it would reduce the tax levy, because the state aid, by giving additional building aid as part of the tax levy limit formula, that is a reduction to the taxpayer. So they're giving us aid on a capital project, so it's an offset to the taxpayer. In this instance, this time, which for colleagues that have been in the business for 20 years, it's very, very rare to see a reduction inside of state aid from the executive run to the final budget. So I was very confident that it was not going to happen, as I had mentioned inside of the memos that I provided Friday, that I did not see it going down. So we have not even gotten the full budget detail to figure out what was the change between the executive run for building aid and the final run for building aid. Building aid is a derivative of a capital project that was closed out for state aid filings. I have no capital projects pending.
Can you appeal that or no?
You can't, it is
Can't appeal it?
very hard to appeal the state. Unless if by going through that analysis, which we will do, because building aid is a schedule. Building aid is something that we keep a schedule for. So if for some reason they made a blatant error, we then appeal it, but it comes back to you the following year. So in 23, 24, they will give you a double payment. But it's historically very, very rare that is going to happen. Again, previously presented at all three budget presentation meetings before. The revised summary shows the expenditure budget increasing by 2.87%, and all the revenue categories that I have previously presented showing you a balanced budget with an increase of 2.87% or dollar increase year over year of $2,314,523. Is there any questions on Proposition 1, 2022-2023 expenditure budget? We will move on to Proposition 2, which is the May 2022 capital projects proposition. As previously mentioned, the Proposition 2 is a little less than $2.9 million. It is to renovate 2 high school art classrooms, room 116 and 118, and renovate the high school auxiliary gym into a physical health and wellness center. There is no cost to the taxpayer for this project. It is fully funded by funds within the tax reduction reserve that were put there from our prior year's state aid award. As previously mentioned, there are 114 ninth grade students that have taken at least one class in the art room over the past 3 years. Over the past 3 years, an average of 209 high school students have taken at least one class in an art room. And it's very important to point out that the 2 classrooms that we are renovated have the original casework from when the building was actually built. So it's not like we are replacing something that we previously replaced.
Circa 1972?
Right about that.
Okay. Just so everyone realizes how old it is.
So the project scope, remove all existing casework, sinks, drop ceilings, light fixtures, HVAC ductwork, floor tile, interior walls, reconfigure the interior space to maximize the functionality. I know that Mr. Pugliese has been working extensively with his art teachers, meeting with the district architects, design team, in order to come up with what is the best plan that meets the program needs, that meets the student objectives. As that work continues, we will come forward with additional renderings once they are finalized. Smart furniture will replace fixed casework when possible, and the renovated space will have a direct impact on the student learning environment. Just a few pictures. Renovate the high school auxiliary gym to a physical health and wellness center. Again, this is taking the existing auxiliary gym inside the high school that was previously, the focus was actually used for the wrestling team that now has their own center inside the old fitness building that has been fully renovated in order to create a space that will support not only a fitness center, as well as all the primary components of the lifetime activities: Pilates, yoga, weight training, cardio exercises. So there has been a steady increase since the 2018-19 school year in the lifetime activities program of the student interest in this program. The current school year, there are 256 students that are enrolled in the lifetime activities program. In addition to the physical education program, the athletic program will also benefit from renovating the auxiliary gym. And over the past 3 years, an average of 49% of high school students, approximately 330 students, participate in either a varsity and junior varsity athletic team on an annual basis. So not only are the physical education classes going to utilize the space, also the athletic program will also, the student athletes will take advantage of this renovated space. If you picture up, nope, not yet. The plan is to renovate the existing auxiliary gym so it will function as a physical health and wellness center. The physical health and wellness center will serve as a multi-use space, both for physical ed and athletics. A new HVAC system with air conditioning, a new sound system, interlocking rubber floor in the section where the fixed equipment is located, folding partition wall, and a set of perimeter wall pads. There will be an infrastructure to allow for a mobile smart board to support instruction.
Just a quick question with the scope of work. How
Yep.
loosely is that written? I know sometimes.
How loosely, in what context?
Right. Well, a folding partition wall, I know the design's not complete, so I just want, how much are we locked into these 4 or 5 items that they're in the final product?
We are as locked in. If it turns out that after the final design, we aren't putting a folding partition wall in because the instructional program does not support that need, that's fine.
Okay.
It is to really try to show and establish in as much detail what our current vision is as of today.
That's fine, I'm just getting clarity because I've heard other things in the past. So.
Again, it's important to point out that when you're building a capital project, you're building it, you don't have the funding to do a deep dive into the development. You need to do enough initial work in order to bring something to the voters of how we think it's going to work. And as it stands today, this is the current model that it stands today. If new information comes available that changes that, it's not changing that we're changing the wellness center. We're just changing the way we're outfitting the wellness center. Just a couple pictures for those. And the ballot language for Proposition 2, shall the Board of Education of the Shoreham-Wading River Central School District be authorized pursuant to Chapter 298 of the Laws of New York of 2008 to use funds at no additional cost to the taxpayer from the Tax Reduction Reserve, which was established by the Board of Education on June 17, 2008, via Resolution 0708-216, and contains the prior year's state aid funds for the following purposes and projects: renovate high school art classroom 116, renovate high school art classroom 118, renovate the high school auxiliary gym into a physical health and wellness center, and any ancillary work, related work, furnishings, and equipment that are incidental to said projects in an amount not to exceed $2,898,040. Any questions on Proposition 1 or Proposition 2? Because one of the resolutions tonight is to adopt the expenditure budget. And after that point, that is our expenditure budget. And I'm glad we had a great season as far as I'm concerned. It was a little bit tricky towards the end, but I thought it was a very, very, very detailed, comprehensive approach to developing what I think is a great 2022-23 budget. I think it's important to note that when you're developing a budget, you are dealing with every staff member inside of the district at some capacity, and I cannot thank the entire team that always supports Cabinet in order to come up with the necessary information to put the budget together, whether it's the 4 building principals, the athletic director, the special ed director, community programs director, the athletic director. There is a component of everyone, the facilities administrator, in order to put everything forward, and then Cabinet works through trying to put all of it together so that it fits within the allowable revenue. And I think this year was a challenging budget, but working with a great group of people makes a challenge easy. Additional presentation dates: April 25th, Shoreham Civic Association, virtual meeting at 7 p.m. April 26th, Board of Education meeting, high school auditorium, 7 p.m. April 27th, PTA Council, high school library, 7 p.m. April 28th, Wading River Civic Association, virtual meeting, time to be determined. May 3rd, Board of Education meeting, budget hearing, high school auditorium. May 17th, high school main gym, budget vote, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on May 17th. Thank you. Legislative priorities also. Sorry, I always forget it's there. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Arcuri.
Thank you.
Next up, votes and resolutions. Approval of the February 15th minutes. Can I get a motion? Megan, second Jim. Any discussion or questions? Okay to vote?
Sorry, Hammond was distracting me.
Side conversation.
Okay, we're just
We got
voting
so tied up in the
on-
budget, we were still talking about it.
After all the presentations
Yeah.
you've had.
Approval of the minutes?
Yes, February 15th minutes. We got a motion by Megan and seconded by Jim. Any discussion or questions? Okay to vote? All in favor? 5-0. Then the March 8th minutes. Can I get a motion? Mike, second Jim. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. Next, we're going to accept the policies for the first reading. Mrs. Mahoney?
Thank you. On April 7th, 2022, the Policy Committee diverted from the progression of policies numerically to focus on a set of policies recommended to be reviewed and revised through the internal audit. The auditors recommended as a corrective action that NISBA policies replace the set of policies they audited to be better aligned to our policies to all required laws and regulations. The policies, the policy 1900, parent and family engagement, would be replacing policy 8260. This policy corresponds with our current policy 8260, Title I, Parent and Family Engagement. This policy was recommended for adoption as its current. Specifications were added into this policy to reflect ways in which the district will promote and make participation accessible and strategies to coordinate parent involvement. Both of the exhibits are also recommended for adoption to better establish protocol and provide backup to the policy. I also just want to mention that all of these policies for a first reading are all required policies. Policy number 4321, Programs for Students with Disabilities. This policy corresponds with our current policies 7611, Children with Disabilities, 7620, Student with Disabilities participating in school district programs, and 7631, Appointment and Training of Committee on Special Education, Subcommittee on Special Education. It was recommended to include the portion of our current policy, 7631, to include the information about CSE and subcommittee memberships. 4321.01, Provision of Special Education Services in the Least Restrictive Environment. This policy corresponds with District Policy 7615, Least Restrictive Environments. It was recommended for adoption to replace our current policy, as both policies capture the same information. However, the NISBA policy is current and the district policy has not been updated since 2009. Policy 4321.02, School-wide pre-referral approaches and intervention. This policy corresponds with District Policy 7616, pre-referral intervention strategies. Recommended for adoption to replace our current district policy as it's current and provides a variety of practices appropriate and consistent with applicable law and regulation. It was also suggested to include the language about academic intervention services and parental notification from our current policy. Policy number 4321.05, confidentiality, access, development, and provision to individualized education service programs and service plans. This policy corresponds with District Policy 7640, Student Individualized Education Program, IEP, Development and Provision. It was recommended for adoption to replace the current district policy as it is current. However, it was suggested to include the portion of our current policy to depict the development of IEPs. The title was also changed to reflect the inclusion of development and provision of IEPs. Policy number 4321.06, availability of alternative format instructional materials for students with disabilities. This policy would replace our current policy 5412, alternative formats for instructional materials. It was recommended to adopt as the NISBA policy is current. It was discussed that much of the language in the current policy was reflected in the NISBA policy. Policy number 4321.07, district-wide and statewide assessments of students with disabilities. This policy is a new policy recommended for adoption. It was suggested to remove the section of the policy titled Universal Design Principles in District-Wide Assessments, as there was discussion that if the section does not apply to a district, then it should not be included. Policy number 4321.08, impartial hearings and impartial hearing officer appointment and compensation. This policy corresponds with District Policy 7670, impartial due process hearing, selection of impartial hearing officers. It was recommended for adoption to replace our current policy as it is current and provides information on hearing officer selection and appointment. However, it was also suggested to add language from our current policy to include information about due process hearing and the resolution process. Policy number 4321.11, public report on revisions to district policies, practices, and procedures upon finding of significant disproportionality. This is a new policy recommended for adoption, and it's also a required policy as the rest. It was suggested to contain the language that the superintendent would notify the board and school personnel of a significant disproportionality. Policy number 4321.13, preschool special education. This policy corresponds with District Policy 7614, preschool special education program. It was recommended for adoption as it is current, and it provides a list of administrative practices and procedures. And lastly, policy number 4321.14, special education personnel. This is a new policy recommended for adoption. It was suggested to remove the language which projects an annual report being shared with the board containing certifications and qualifications of special education personnel and professional development opportunities as they are provided prior to the board during the hiring process. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept these for the first reading? Henry, second Megan. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. Can I get a motion to accept the policies for the second reading and adopt as presented previously, 2000 through 2111.1? Can I get a motion, Henry? Second Megan. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. We have 4 curriculum and instruction resolutions. Is it okay to take those as a block? Yes, okay. Can I get a motion to approve 2122-215 through 218? Jim, second. Henry, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. There are 12 business operations resolutions. Is it okay to take those as a block? Okay, can I get a motion to approve 219 through 230? Megan, second Jim. Any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. Can I get a motion to approve the personnel agenda? Henry, second. Jim, any discussion or questions? All in favor? 5-0. Okay. Yeah, that's, thank you. So can I get a motion to, we don't have any residents present, there's been no notification, but any additional discussion by, board members? No, we good? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting to a second exec related to collective bargaining negotiations? Motion Mike, second Megan. Any discussion or, sorry, thank you. All in favor? 5-0. Okay, good night, everyone.